Let's breathe together, shall we? And since this talk is about listening, let's listen to the breath. If you're able to, you can hear the noise with your ears. And let's jump in and practice right away with hearing our breath from all that you are, from all that you can hear from. Maybe it's your senses. Maybe you're hearing through your body. Maybe you're hearing through a feeling. So let's try that. Let's just play. What is your breath telling you? Is there anything it wants you to know? I'm getting a "I got you" kind of message. What are you hearing as it reaches the depths of the lobes of your lungs, and as it makes its exit? Whether noisily, I'm sorry if that was too loud, or very quietly. Every opportunity, we have a moment to listen. Listen to something. Listen to what's going on with us, with our breath, in our mind, in our bodies. Hi, Marita. Cooking. You're upset because you just came from a very patriarchal meeting and it really provoked you. So interesting. So interesting, Marita. I'm wondering what your experience might be, if anything different. If we could do some practicing here, and then you were able to take that in again. Maybe listen from a different place. That's lovely, Christy. Sending hugs to Marita. I feel that for you. Yeah. Marita, you think you need this? Yeah. Well, let's jump in then. So in talking about deep listening, that it's the antidote to misunderstanding and conflict. And what do I mean by this? Well, so first let's look at, always my intent is to guide you to that within you that has all the answers that are right for you. The intelligence of life that guides our breath, that is breathing you without you having to pay attention to it, to listen to it. It's doing that whether you're aware of it or not. And that same intelligence, that same energetic guidance is there to support us in anything that comes our way, anything that we are presented with in our life, even patriarchal meetings. It's there. So let's look at what it means, how it plays into this listening. So, briefly, because you're new, I'll mention an understanding that I kind of come to these conversations from, and that is of the principles of life as articulated by a gentleman named Sydney Banks, who is a Scottish welder come mystic, he's an everyday guy, just like you and I. And this is available to all of us, where he saw something, he had an insight, had a very powerful insight, very clear, where a lot dropped away. It was like the veils of life were parted, and he was able to see cleanly and clearly how we are made, that we are energy, that we are infinite intelligence, that yes, we have a body, we have a human quality to us, but that human part of us is just a teeny tiny part, a teeny tiny aspect of all that we are. And that all that we are is the same. It is the great equalizer of life, of all beings, no matter your culture or religion or color of hair or skin or background, what you do for a living, whether you have children or not. We are all live by the same energy. And that is what of mind, that is mind, that energy. And we have the ability to be aware that we are alive, aware of what we're thinking, of each other, of the ability to read things, to learn, the ability to be aware of all that's going on around us and within us. And then there's the principle of thought, the power of thought. And that is, as Sydney Banks said, the missing link. That if all we had a knowing of was that the only thing we're ever experiencing, feeling, what we're experiencing is a feeling, the only thing that we're ever feeling is our own thinking, the meaning we make of anything. Anything that we experience, it seems that we're experiencing it outside of us, even our body. It seems that those things outside of us are causing us to feel a certain way, to have an experience. But the truth is, we can only experience our own thinking about any of it, all of it. And this is something that we can only discover for ourselves by testing it out in our own life. So we live in a thought, in other words, we live in a thought-created reality, our own. We can be raised in the same house, living with people, and we all have a different experience of that. Even the temperature. I just was listening. I just caught the sound of the heater is now. The weather's turning and the furnace is going and I can hear it. Even the temperature in the house, it's all experienced differently. And we all think something about it. Cold, oh, we just put something on. Or it could be, I'm cold. Why does he keep turning the furnace down? Why does she keep opening up the windows? When really, I'm cold. And we can stop right there. And there'll be something to do. Oh, I'm going to put on a sweater or a blanket, or maybe I'll go turn the furnace up. Maybe I'll close the window. But we tend to have all this other noise going on. And it muddles. It muddles what's at hand. What's at hand is, I'm cold. Okay. Doesn't have anything to do with anybody closing windows or opening windows or furnace up or down, but we can have a lot of thinking about that and it can cloud. It just weighs down the moment. And we will play with this with our listening. Because that is what interferes with our listening, our ability to listen, our desire to listen. So the intent here is to explore, always, to see if you, by the end of this call, will have a different idea, a different way of how you might show up to yourself and to other people, other situations in life. Our pets, our weather, showing up to the weather even. Even in this moment, in talking about listening, how are you hearing me? What are you noticing? I sometimes talk with my hands, so it's like, oh, I'm just guessing because I don't know. We never know what each other are thinking. Even when we're so sure. Of course I know what you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. I know what's behind that. We can't know. We can't know. Oftentimes we don't even know ourselves what we're thinking. So how can we know anyone else's? And we don't want to go there. We actually don't want to go there. We have enough with our own thinking. Let's not worry about what others are thinking so much. What we can know, though, what will be helpful, is knowing that we are only ever doing the best we can with what we're currently thinking, with our level of thinking and understanding of how the world works, how the mind works. If I know that I'm experiencing only my thinking and I'm feeling like, it's like, oh, wow, I know that I'm making a lot of meaning about something outside of me. But I'm only feeling I can only experience and feel what's coming up from within me. We live in an inside-out world, not an outside-in. Although that's how we've been taught, right? That's how it looks, but it's just a trick of the mind. It's just how it looks, because it looks like it's out there, but it's actually being shone out there. And then we get to experience what we're thinking. So I'll let that settle for a minute. In talking about deep listening, let's talk about different kinds of listening. When I say deep listening, like I have a furrow in my brow because I've always like listened intently, listened to gain knowledge, listen to get it right, listen because what this person says, I like what they say, I want to learn it all. I want to learn it all so I can share with others, and I want to catch all the words to make sure that I'm understanding it right. And it's like, it's exhausting, really. It's really quite exhausting. There are times where we need to do that. Like when a number of years ago I went to this, we live where there are bears, sometimes right in our neighborhood, not so much here, but close by. There's bears and cougars. And I went to this nature talk, and they were talking about bears and cougars, and I listened very intently when they told us, what to do when you're encountering a bear, how to use the bear spray, and what to do when you encounter a cougar. It's very different. I listened. I wanted to know. And my kids were young at that time, and I wanted to let them know. So there's different ways that we will listen. So deep listening is not that, like that, with that intensity of gathering knowledge and information and remembering. That is one type of listening. True. And we can have what we can happen in a conversation, and I'm sure it's happened many times, even with me talking to you. I caught the furnace. So my attention went there. So when we're listening to someone in a conversation, our attention can go all over. We can get, something can catch our eye, or the dog comes in, or someone else comes in, or we're thinking about what they're meaning. We're hearing some words and we're reacting to it because it sounds like they're trying to tell me X, Y, Z, and I want no part of that. I disagree. And it's just like, I can't wait till they stop talking so I can tell them what I think. So we're not really listening. There's like a taking it in on one level, but on the other, it's like we're already formulating our words, what we're going to say. And it's you cannot think two things at one time. It may seem like you can, but we just can't. One thought at a time. So when we're in a place where we're just, and I don't know why, for me it's like a sitting back. I'm glad that connected. When there's like a sitting back and a listening, someone's talking. And I must say, I don't know how to listen to only one thought at a time. because it happens so fast, because our mind is so quick. But when you actually try not to listen to it, everything, and it's like listening with your heart. It's like listening with the energetic, the intelligent wisdom, the part of us that lives and breathes us all, that knows all. It's like taking it in from there. We take in so much more information, but it's not overloaded. It's not like taking it all in and then being, oh my gosh, too much information. My experience is not that. Marita, it's really a challenge if not only to wait for this space to say my meaning exactly. Yes. I think I understand that. Correct me if I go off track. But when there is a conversation at hand where there's conflicting beliefs, and beliefs are just thought that we've kind of agreed to, and we just keep on thinking them, we keep on believing them. We support them, we defend them. So if we come with opposing beliefs, conflicting, and if we are just focused on the words and what we are making of it, there will be more conflict. There will be, but it's coming from within us. When we listen, and I don't know what it'll be like for you, Marita, the next time that you might be within the same company with a similar conversation. But I'd invite you to just see what else. Not like looking for, okay, what else? But looking to just listen to it all. When we sort of relax back and give our attention, it's not even giving our attention. It's just like kind of letting it wash over you. And you might not catch every word, but you're still hearing it all. So I know this can happen in listening too, where you're listening to someone and then you fade off and start thinking about your grocery list or whatever, and then you do maybe miss part of the conversation. This is different. This is just sort of taking all of someone in, not just the words that are coming out of their mouth. And just seeing what else comes up. Seeing and hearing and feeling what it is that's coming up. Marita, if you are of a highly sensitive nature or maybe introverted, I'll just share my experience in this idea about you're running out. I'll try. I'm an old woman. I'm running out of patience from time to time. Yeah. This feels like another conversation around patience. I'm just going to make a note about that for this listening. Well, let's dive in. Let's dive in. And this is very interesting because it was a couple of weeks ago when I was first putting this And it's like, I want to talk about listening, because I can see the difference that it makes in my life when I'm not. And I'm practicing. I am practicing to listen in this way more. So when I'll just tell you a little story, was when I was first putting this together. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing on listening. And then, ideas kind of come up, and I don't necessarily go and like do it right away, like set it up. And I got this notification that what I would call is a master listener and teacher of listening. She was doing a talk, and it was happening this morning. It's like, oh, well, I know what comes up for me around it offhand. And when I come to these calls, I try not to make too many notes. Like I try to keep it, because I want to hear what wisdom wants to say in the moment. I want to see what comes up and allow that, because I know it's going to be more real time helpful, because the energy that lives us guides us in real time, 24/7, in real time. It's not necessarily going to tell you what you need to do next week at 3:00, although it might, but you won't know until you arrive in that moment what's going to happen, but you'll be guided. So anyways, I book this intentionally to see like, what new do I see from this talk around listening. And it was a lot of the same, but here's what was different. And I'd like to invite you to just play with me on this. And Jean says, I cannot listen if you're angry. Yeah. You know what? That makes total sense, Jean. Hi. Because if you're angry, it means you're having angry thinking. That's all it means. If you're feeling angry, it means that you're having angry thinking. You're having angry thoughts about something. And you can only think one thought at a time. You can only feel one feeling at a time. Now, sometimes our feelings can happen, our thoughts can happen so fast and furious, and often it's a train or a chain of similar thoughts. Kind of takes us down into a spiral, whether up or down, or whatever direction. So as long as you are having a thought about being angry about something, the only way is to, like, what else can I hear here? It's like opening up to what else. But if what you're listening to, like all of it, is you have a thought about it that it's wrong or it's dangerous or whatever, in whatever way you're looking at it, you are in disagreement with it in such a way that it's causing you to feel anger. So we can't listen if we're so full of emotion. So example, so someone is talking to me and I'm hearing them, maybe I'm agreeing with them. Maybe I'm just like, I'm actually feeling excited because me too. And I'm like, I just want to share my story. I'm not listening to them anymore. I can't, because I'm so full of my own thinking about my story that I want to share. And I'll do this like, listen, there's this. So it can happen whether the feeling is something that feels good or whether it's a feeling that feels not so good. If we're feeling if we're getting attached, if it feels like that's the feeling that we're just on, we're kind of caught on it, it means we are kind of attached to something. And that is the thing, we're attached to this thought about it, and the feeling is just continuing. When we are deep listening, there will still be thoughts and emotions, but they're They're not going to be gripping you in that same way, distracting you. So I want to share something about this. So just because we can't get into a talking thing here, I'm just going to invite you to think of a moment, a time, with a person who really listened to you. Maybe it's someone current in your life. Maybe it's someone from the past. If you have someone in mind who you feel or felt listen to you, like what was that like? Like, first of all, and I hope there is someone that comes to mind for you, but first of all, notice that someone came to mind. How did you know? What was it about that person? What was it that had you felt listened to? If you care to share anything, I'd love to know, like, was it a feeling? What were you feeling? They're like Velcro, Marita said. What else? I'll share some of the things that came up in this call this morning, because I felt it. I felt it with my Uncle George. He was the first one that came to mind. He's been many years past. But when I was a teen, he used to, if I was in the living room watching TV and the adults were coming together to play cards, warm, loving eye contact, Christine said. Mick, a tenderness. Yes. Yes. There is a feeling to being listened to. Being like of you matter. You're cared for. Those feelings of warmth and love, eye contact, this tenderness, like Velcro, that you matter, that you're important, that you're significant. Got the other cares, that you belong. That doesn't come from distracted thinking. That doesn't come from a place of wanting to get my own thing said. That doesn't come from a place of, where like impatience, talking about patience, where we I've done it, oh dear. Finish someone else's sentences, to just, and then to add to it, I'm guessing the wrong words. I'm finishing with the wrong words, and then there's like frustration and no, and anger, and then they don't even want to say anymore what they wanted to say in the first place. Anybody ever done that before? And I'll do it again, because I'm human, so I will forget. But the point, oh yes, Marita says, yeah. Yeah, we all have. I don't know anyone who hasn't. And we're human. But the point of these conversations is to become more aware. More aware how we can have a more enjoyable experience of being human. And not just our own experience, but those around us. And when those around us are having a better experience, it's easier for us. Why? Because we still sometimes think that those people are giving us our experience. But that's not how it works. We give ourselves our own experience of life. And they have their own experience too. They are only thinking, feeling their own thinking. They're not feeling ours. They're not experiencing me and what I'm doing. They're experiencing their thoughts about what I'm doing. We're only in relationship with our own thinking about anyone and anything. If we can remember that even just a little bit more of the time when we're alive and living in our day, life will just feel easier, calmer, more relaxed, less conflict. We'll hear each other more. This was a very interesting thing that came up in one of the practices today. And it was listening. It was about my Uncle George. And while I'm talking, I would love for you to just practice this deeper listening. This listening with all that you are. But not like, okay, rally the troops, not that, just like, wow, just letting it wash over you almost, and allowing yourself to rise and fall with whatever comes up. And things will come up. Just notice it. That's cool. It's so good to notice what's going on in there, because that's what we're feeling, that's what we're experiencing. So the more aware we are of what our thoughts are and how our feelings are velcroed to them, that they rise with the thought that we're making meaning of, the more that the more choice we have. And it'll just naturally, it's not even choice. It's just like when you notice something going on and you like it or don't like it, you tend to either do more of it or less of it. But it's first being aware that it's even going on. So as I tell this little story about Uncle George and how I was sharing with my fellow listener, we took turns listening to each other. Practice this at home. How fun. You can even let them know what you're doing or not. Just see what happens. I was pondering this. I told the story about how Uncle George would come in and he always made a point if I'm out and about anywhere, he always made a point of asking how I was and asking how school was. And, and I was a kid and I was kind of shy. And, and I answered and I appreciated that. I didn't really know it at the time, As kids, we kind of just, don't really think too much about those things until you get on with life. You think, wow, he cared. And it's not that my other aunts and uncles didn't care. It's just they didn't have the same nudge to engage in that way. That's totally cool. But he would ask, and I remember there were times where it felt a little uncomfortable. And in pondering this morning, like just sitting with it, and you know why I was sitting with it? Because I was being listened to. I had this space to be listened to. And as I was kind of, just letting this sort of waffle around me, in me. And I thought, wow, I was really uncomfortable being in the spotlight. A little bit nervous about that. And also enjoying it. Enjoying that he cared to put me on the spotlight. I had never thought about being listened to like that before. So you never know what you are going to discover about yourself. And what it means. There might be a little, look at that. My life. How did that play out in my life? I don't need to think about any of that. I was just curious. It was a very curious thing. So you don't even know the gifts that you give someone by giving them space, by listening, by not jumping in, cutting them off, like by allowing silence, by allowing their words to fall into the air until they naturally, and then something else comes up. We got things to do in our day, hey? It's like, we don't have time to let them all fall and dissipate away. We gotta make supper, we gotta go here, we gotta go there, we gotta get groceries. I got a call, it's like we don't have time. We have more time than I think we allow ourselves to believe. And it's not really about time. Yeah, maybe we don't all have time with every conversation to allow it to, sometimes there's an efficiency that just happens, But in those moments, when someone is wanting to share something with you, what would it be like to just let it sort of wash over you? You'll catch the meaning. You'll catch something. You'll catch something more. You'll catch something deeper. I dare say you'll learn more about that person in a much shorter amount of time than carrying on a regular conversation for a long time. Because you will come to feel them. Oh, Marita, I was talking about if you're, have a more sensitive nature or introverted or whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter, all those labels. But if in a conversation, and there's some people who are like very animated and talking and they jump in quick and they're fast think. It's like they're quick. It's like they're quick. I'm not so quick. HSP, yes, me too. I'm not so quick all the time. I remember this one time specifically. This was a time where it was just like, it was glaring to me, where I was at, it was a somebody's birthday party. It was all women. We're all in a circle, and we were kind of sharing things about her, that where we met her and that kind of stuff. And at one point, there was something that was brought up that she was kind of, challenged by, and she was kind of looking to everyone to like, what do you think here? And I had something come up, but it comes up, but it was like, it was just, I realized that, oh, I could like dive in there and get my say in, but I'm just not. I'll just let it all, because it was, so sometimes the dynamics of a conversation, they kind of, if everyone else isn't aware of listening, and even if they are, we're not aware all the time, it can be a challenge. But that's the talking part, the sharing our part. In just the, like when I settled back to like, oh, because I could feel this like, when it came up, I wanted to get, and it's like, oh, this is, I just listened to all the things that came up. And they were cool. So I learned something, which I probably wouldn't have if I would have just been insistent and hung on and just like waiting, like in a starting block, at the beginning of a race, waiting to like get in there when I could. Hi, Christine. Yes, especially with more than one person, I'm too late. I hear you. I hear you, sister. And it's like, oh, I really want to, and I have on occasion when it's felt like it's not too late, where I'll say, hang on, can we go back to this for just a moment? I've done it. Not always. Sometimes it's just like, whatever, it's okay. But yeah. So listening. I want to share one more quick story. You might have heard this before, and then so when I'll do different thing, like even coming here, I said I don't like to make too many notes, because then I'll get in my head and it's like, I really want to, like, what's going to come up? What's going to come up? I don't always know. I do have a few notes because I want it to be helpful. And did you hear that? I want it to be helpful. Well, like, what is going to be the most helpful is like getting out of anything that I can come up with here and just allowing infinite intelligence to speak. So I try to. I'm aware of that. And there's a feeling to it. There's times where I can go on like a little rampage and it's like, oh, I can feel like I'm getting in my head. And then I know to like, okay, come back. There's a feeling to it. Well, my husband had seen, there's another little group that I'll do these things. And actually, I think I'm going to, oh, never mind. I'll share some on here. Called Beautiful Feelings. And I just go live and I just go with whatever comes up in the moment. There might be there've been times where I didn't even know what I was going to talk about until I pressed go live. And then it just came. It just like, oh, it just came. Well, my husband heard one of these and he asked me about it. He asked me about, like, what, like, you're different. You're different when you're talking there. And it's like, then I am when we're just moving around the house and living together, right? And it's just like, oh, yeah. Yeah, what's the difference? Because when I'm moving about the house and there's all these things to do, I'm in my head. And I'm thinking about all kinds of things, and I'm having all kinds of feelings about it because I'm making all kinds of meaning about it. I don't have time for that. I need to have, we're going to do that, and we're going to do this, and how do we organize things and all of that. And there is a listening. And it's like listening from there. It's like listening from where we can also speak from. Oh, I just felt something like. It really is about listening and speaking from the place of infinite wisdom, which is always of a love, benevolent, neutral, kind, place. I'm Marita. In our meditation retreats, we use a piece of wood, and it's only the person with the piece of wood that's allowed to speak until ready. Nice. The rest of us are listening. There's also another concentration in those surroundings. I love that. I got goosebumps up my arm and down my legs. Yeah. How wonderfully respectful, hey? And listening, this deeper listening, this listening from our foundation of love and openness and acceptance, and it has a different feeling. And we've all felt it. We know what it's like to be listened to. And we know what it's like to be not listened to. And we get to, like, being more aware of this, like knowing how we felt. And in this other room we were in, there was a lot of different lovely words that were shared about what it's like to feel heard. And also many other opposing words of what it felt like to be not heard when we're clipped or we're snipped or we're assuming what they mean. When we are sort of jumping ahead. And we may be correct in what they mean, but when we jump in with our thoughts and feelings about it before it's even all said, it's like it interferes in the ability to have any kind of open conversation about it. It cuts off our natural curiosity and wonder. Because knowing that what they're saying makes sense to them at some level. And our job isn't to change it. We don't really have a job there at all, except for to just listen. But what if we got curious about it? It's like, oh, where does that come from? Or, I don't know. It depends on what comes up in the moment of, like, how does that work? How does that, what does it mean to you? Because we have all these interesting things that we've developed, mostly, I believe, when we were really, really young. these ideas that somehow had us feeling better at that time, kept us safe, or had us feeling good or accepted, or at least not, no one got angry at us if we just did this, right? So we have all these things that we kind of bring forward throughout our life, and then we just keep on unless something new makes better sense, and then we change it. So maybe in these conversations where maybe there's an opportunity for all of us, for like both of us, or whoever's in the conversation, if we're all listening and instead look to like, what about that? Where did that, not where did it come from, but it's like somehow that makes meaning. And when we can come to it more openly, there's an opportunity for all of us to see something that makes better sense. To see something that, wow, that doesn't make sense to me quite anymore. That happens to me here in these conversations with you. We're all just coming to a conversation with our level of thinking and consciousness awareness. And I'm open. I want to know. I know that how I'm talking about the things that I'm talking about today, it's not quite the same way that I was talking about them like a year or 2 or 3 ago. And I know that in a year, I'm going to see something new. Like throughout the next year, we're all going to hear and see something new from all of the people, that the conversations that you might be involved in Insight Timer and outside of it. You'll be learning. People are sharing their ideas or thoughts, or you're seeing someone do something. It's like, wow, that's a great idea. I never thought of that before. And all of a sudden there's like a new time saver in your life, or whatever. We're always learning. And then it opens up where it's like, oh, what else have I just been doing because that's the way I've always been doing it, and that's how I always say it, and that, it's like, where else might I be more open to listen more deeply to it? Was there something that was helpful in any way to you today? Are you willing to practice listening? And maybe you can start with yourself. What's really there? I'm glad. Next week, on Tuesday, I believe it is, we'll be talking about something about presence. And really, I didn't know exactly about presence. And when I was thinking about it earlier this morning, I thought it's, wow, like when we're listening in this way, more openly, to me it almost feels like open listening. Deeply listen. You know what I mean now, though? It's like, oh, well, isn't that just presence? Isn't that just being present? Anyway, I've been seeing different things about presence as well, so that'll be cool to explore. because that's all we got is this present moment in time, something we call time, which is kind of silly when we think about it because we can only be in this moment. But there is a clock and a calendar that enables us to get into the same room together. So that's good. So I hope there's something that you can take away today and experience something a little bit better for yourself in your life. Maybe discover some new things about what you like in the way of listening and being listened to. Maybe it'll prompt some honest conversations with your loved ones in how, and maybe even like little practices, depending on who and, what they're into. I'm not sure if my family would be, so they would. My husband certainly would be. They would. Oh, gosh. Marita, the word present in English means gift also. Ah, yes. Yes. And it is. Well, thank you for being present today in the moments that you were able to be present. Because I went in different places too, right? Christine, right? I went to the heater and I went to the, it's like, but it comes in. We can use it. It's like bits of information that we can bring to the present moment. It's coming up. How can we use it to be more, to make this moment just, to enjoy it? Christine, thank you, Mick-eye-la. You're welcome. Helpful to remember that we and everyone are only ever experiencing our own thinking. Right? Right? Really simplifies life. It really simplifies it when you look at it. It's almost like one of those, what? And we forget, and we'll remember again. And then we will just create different experiences. The more we remember, and we will. The only practice to do ever is just notice. Just notice when or how you're listening. If you want to share it with your friend or partner or child or whatever, like, hey, I'm going to practice listening. Do you want to practice with me? Or you don't even have to tell them. Just notice what you notice. Notice your thoughts jumping all over. Notice when you want to finish their sentence. Notice when you think you know what they're going to say to you. You know what's coming. And you're making judgments and you're really not listening. You're already feeling an emotion caused by what you're thinking that they're going to say. Just notice it all. That's awareness. That is the power of consciousness. The principle of consciousness that enables you to be aware. That's really always the first step, isn't it? So, enjoy your week, rest of your week and weekend. I hope to see you again next Tuesday. If you don't, and if anything did resonate with you, I'd love you to follow and join in. So, love to you all. Ciao. You're welcome, Marita. See you again. Thank you. You're welcome, Jane. Thank you. I'm going to put some of these skills in practice. Awesome. Awesome. So glad. I would love to hear if you ever wanted to share any of your explorations. I'd love to hear if you care to share. No pressure.